dragging around, but I never see your love. I never see your love.
G'day folks, it's Phil from 15 Minute Guitar Practice here. How you doing? Today I'm going to take a walk down memory lane and share with you a solo that I wrote so long ago, and I wrote it without knowing really what I was doing. And so I'm coming to revisit it and see how I feel about it after such a long time. That's after this. So this song is called Dragging Around. It was written in 1997, and it was the first song that I contributed to when I joined the band G-Tone. G-Tone was probably one of the most favourite bands I've ever been in, with 3 other awesome, funny and talented guys. I joined the band in June 1997, and we went into the studio, I think, in maybe the August of that year. So they were keen to kind of get tracks together, and this was the first track that was surfaced. Satoshi, the bass player, had come up with this awesome bass riff, but the guitar player who had exited the band hadn't really come up with a part that really anyone felt, including himself, that was really working. I kind of immediately got this sense that because the bass was moving around so much, that the guitar should probably do the opposite. So I came up with this pretty simple so not a complex part at all. And in fact, you know, one of the things I think we feel, definitely I did as a younger player, that what I needed to create needed to be complex. Because when you're younger, there's this kind of thing that you do where when you create parts, you're not really creating parts for the song. You're creating parts that you can play to impress the people in the audience that also play the instrument you play, so they can go, damn, he's pretty good. But that quickly fell away for me. I'm very happy that it did, because I always tried to focus on what was good for the song, and here is a great example. Everyone was pretty happy with that, and it felt funky. As a new recruit to the band, you always want to make a really good first impression. The thing we talked about that was a concern was that great riff was the backbone of the entire song, and 4 minutes of that riff was kind of starting to get a bit samey, and we needed something in there to change it up. So I put forward this series of middle 8 chords. Now, I didn't come up with that. I actually totally ripped that off of one of my favourite bands at the time, Living Colour. These are the chords for Love Rears Up Its Ugly Head.
Love rears up its ugly head.
But it was something that worked. It gave the song a change of scenery, just briefly, which is the real function of a middle 8, is to take the song somewhere else, to give the listener some different scenery before returning to the main riff. So that's what happened. And the way we interspersed this middle 8 was to have those chords and then return to the riff briefly, and then go back to those chords and then set up for the solo. So the whole thing was... and holding there, trying to, but sadly failing, to get some amazing feedback. But it didn't do exactly what I was hoping it would do on the day, but that was okay. So then we launched into the solo. And again, this is the first solo in a new band. So I don't know if you can imagine the pressure Okay, so I've got this chorus part and everyone's like, yeah, that's cool, man. And I'm thinking, well, let me prove that this wasn't a fluke by coming up with a cool solo. And I didn't know any music theory at the time. I was completely led by my ears, some of my influences, borrowing and referencing some other licks and things I'd learned up to this point. At this point, when I wrote this solo, I was starting to learn about the modes and other scales, but I really struggled to understand how and when I could apply those things. So this is interesting because even though I was led by my ears, I actually found a few things, and I guess I heard modes without knowing they were modes. So I wanted to kick off with a statement. I wanted it to be unapologetic and very clear of its intent. And like, yes, this is the start of the solo. Pay attention, people. So I kicked off with this B minor pentatonic lick. Next, I went down. I went lower, down the octave for some contrast between that higher opening phrase and, you know, getting something lower down to really change it up. Next up was the thing I'm probably most proud of in this solo, which is this ascending run. I think I got it from Paul Gilbert in terms of it's the way it stacks. The phrase is descending, but every time you repeat the descending phrase, the unit itself actually ascends, which I guess what gives it its kind of musical cool. And this was the part that's modal that I didn't know was modal. I just found some notes outside the minor pentatonic that I thought worked. So this actually turns out to be a kind of Dorian run. And then I finished with this kind of crescendo, you know, an ending to that fast run, change of pace in terms of fewer notes, less frenetic, and kind of more of a full stop to that part of the solo before moving on to a kind of new chapter. For added impact, I also harmonized in the studio with this bit of Brian May kind of guitar harmonies thing influence there. Thank you, Brian. And then we moved up to this next phrase. Didn't really know much about chromaticism there at the time, but just felt right and it sounded right. And then this was a lick I wanted to include because it was one of the fastest licks I could play at the time. Still a great lick. So it's kind of got like an A and a B and an A and a B. A, B. A, B. I'm not sure I get to end that before going into the next lick. I think I stopped there. On the two hits for the top E before going into the next part, which is a series of sliding double stops. So again, I was trying to build a solo that told a story, and I was aware that up to this point, all my playing had been single note playing. So I wanted to include playing two notes at once to, again, just give it some contrast, give it some difference throughout the storytelling process of the solo. Now, when you hear it out of context of the song, it kind of sounds pretty country. Chicken picking stuff that I can't do. But in the context of the song, you've got these sliding two-note phrases that just, you know, give it something different to what the listener has been hearing up to that point. Then I wanted to build this kind of crying, singing, wailing guitar thing that I'd heard. And I totally lifted from Kenwyn House, from Riff. I got a chance to play with Kenwin very early on in Reef's career, and he was always an awesome player. Great feel, great licks, technically really brilliant, but just one of the funkiest players out there, man. So in one of their songs, I think it's Good Feeling, Kenwin's got this wah thing, and he's doing this. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but it's got that kind of crying thing that I really love. That was also Kenwin's thing as well. But it was a great lick, so I took it. So that was pretty satisfying to hit that last note. And then go into these unison bends, which were played over the middle 8 chords once again. Unison bends, again, a great device, a great musical motif to use in your solos too. You're only playing one note, but you're actually playing 2 notes, and one is the target note and the other one is the one that kind of bends up to it. So it's got this kind of sense of urgency, and it's got this kind of scream kind of thing to it. So it's quite vocal. So that was the solo. Looking back on this solo, I'm pretty happy with the way it stacks up. I think it ticks a lot of the boxes in terms of flow, contrast, and momentum, as well as having good rhythmic parts and a crescendo, which all good rock solos should have. So I hope you've enjoyed this trip down memory lane, bit of nostalgia for me. I get to share what I was thinking, what I was trying to do when I build a solo, and hopefully I put it in such a way that you were able to follow. If you were able to follow, then please give me a thumbs up. It's always great when you guys support me and this channel. Recently, I was very pleased to see that I've hit 4,000 subscribers, which, probably in the grand scheme of things, isn't a big deal when you've got people with like 10,000, 40,000. But for little old me, it means a lot. So I really appreciate the support you give to this channel. This is Phil from 15 Minute Guitar Practice, saying bye for now. Cheers.
Draggin around, hanging around, dragging around.